Welcome into the DNVR Rockies Podcast, brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. Strava CBD coffee will improve the quality of your morning because it's rich in CBD, CBG, and will give you zero coffee jitters. It helps chronic headaches, joint pains, etc. 25% off your first purchase when you use code DNVR25 at Strava Craft Coffee. I'm your host, Patrick Lyons, and joining me today is the man, well-known in the Colorado area, for producing a fantastic video on Raimel Tapia, and we love it. And the love you've gotten back from Rocky fans, I think, has been pretty good for the most part. It's Jack from Jolly Olive. Jack, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm good, man. Let's just pretend this logo back here is a Rockies logo, okay? Just for this video. But I'm good, man.
Yeah, I think Mets fans, Rockies fans have a lot in. I think they all, equally suffer their fandom and really continually pull their hair out, regardless of who the owners are of the team. And so I think there's a lot of camaraderie between the two fan bases.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was a frustrating 2021 for both teams. I think it was frustrating for the Rockies from the get-go, and obviously frustrating for the Mets probably at the end of August onward. But I think there's reason for promise in both teams. Whether that's accelerated or not remains to be seen. But the Rockies have a lot of fun players that I like to talk about. Tapia was the top of my list, and we're going to talk about him plenty in this. But the Rockies have a couple of sneaky good players on their roster right now.
Yeah, Tapia is sneaky good. He's a little bit underappreciated. The stats certainly don't do him justice, and that's probably where we should start, is with your video. You kind of covered, some of the good, the bad, the fact that, there are comparisons to Derek Jeter and Ichiro Suzuki. You like hearing that? Christian Yelich, Eric Hosmer. Hey, these are really good ball players if you want to squint and look at some of those things, but there are other indicators that suggest, shoot, he might not be around too long, perhaps.
Right. Yeah. The interesting thing with Tapia is that he's running out of time a little bit. I think he's been in the league. This was his 4th or 5th year. He's been around since like 17 or 18, and he's had a really interesting swing of things. I talk a lot in the video about launch angle, and I know that it's a scary term for older fans of the game who don't quite understand it, and that's okay. And, high launch angles don't necessarily mean that you automatically become a good hitter. The really interesting thing about Raimel Tapia is that he used to have a high launch angle. When he first came up to the league, his average launch angle was something like 18.1 degrees. And this year, it was catastrophically bad. In fact, it's the worst launch angle ever recorded by Savant since they started recording the stat in 2015. His average launch angle was negative 4.4 degrees, which means that every time he hit the ball, he was pretty much hitting it directly into the ground. And that was sort of the first thing I noticed about Tapia when I was looking up stuff.
And it was surprising that the next nearest player, was keeping it somewhat off the ground, had, a little less than 3% elevation there. Shout out to Royals shortstop Nicky Lopez. But there's a lot of similarities with, the reverse launch angle, or the lack thereof, with, a guy like Ian Desmond, who was, frustrating for the Rockies for much, different reasons. I don't know if Tapia is that frustrating, because I don't think, the expectations were kind of, quite what they were for Desmond, partially because, he wasn't given a very lucrative contract. He'll be making $3.9 million potentially in arbitration. So is that a little bit too high? We'll kind of wait and see this offseason. But the thing I love about your piece is it really is sort of a letter to Raimel Tapia of, hey, but here's actually why I love you, because there's so much potential still in there.
Right, and I'm never going to proclaim myself as some sort of MLB coach or guru where my word is gospel, and if you do these things, you'll become a better player. It's just, it seems like so many of the things are clear-cut with Raimel, because Raimel succeeds at so many things. Like, we always see him in highlight reels, and he had that really great hit streak in June where he was lighting the league up, and he has to face tough pitching all the time in the NL West. There are a lot of great aspects to Raimel's game, and he's had a lot of peaks over the past few years, and I actually really did think that this video was going to be a null point, because I thought 2021 was going to be a big year for him where he finally started to put some things together. Instead, that was actually Ryan McMahon, who I feel like had the breakout year that I expected Tapia to have. And their situations are a little bit similar in a way, because McMahon also had his launch angle struggles. He wasn't really lifting the ball, even though he had decent power behind that swing. And Tapia, there's a lot of, he's a slender guy. He's skinny, he's agile, but there is a lot of pop in that swing when he's able to arc the ball and get it on a line.
Yeah, as you pointed out, home runs this year against Scherzer, Walker Buehler, Jacob deGrom, and those were half of his
Yeah.
home runs this year. So if you've got that kind of potential, I mean, man, the sky really could be the limit if you're looking at that. But man, it seems like he's just too much of a free swinger. I mean, I know you said you're not a coach. I know you say you're not Jeff Fry.
Mm.
Shout out there to anyone keeping track of that on Twitter. But what do you think might be the solution, or what could he do slightly differently that could increase the amount of home runs he hits, and doesn't necessarily have to be a Cy Young Award winner and future Hall of Famer. He can just homer off of a number 4 starter.
Yeah, exactly. Like, a normal home run hitter. Yeah, I think that, what a lot of people don't understand is that some of these things cannot be changed from a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. Like, altering your launch angle is an incredibly arduous and difficult thing to do. And it's a lot to ask for a person to do it in the middle of the season. So Raimel has 6 months to notice these things. And I'm sure Rockies hitting coaches have been telling him for probably longer than this video has existed, for sure. So Raimel, this is a big offseason for him. It's kind of a proving offseason because I don't know how much is left on his player contract, but his big thing is going to be getting the ball on a line, not even necessarily on fly balls, because for those who watch the video, you know that his WRC plus, weighted runs created plus numbers for each type of hit, ground balls, line drives, and flyouts. Ground balls and fly balls, not flyouts, excuse me, were both under 100, which is the league average. And line drives was over 300, which is one of the best marks by any hitter in the game, period. So if Raimel Tapia can learn how to square the ball up on a consistent basis and just hit it on a line, even with that great altitude at Colorado, his game is going to completely change. We already know that he's a average to above average defender. We know that he's a stolen base threat. We know that he can hit doubles and triples easily. So the only thing really missing from his game, which dragging down his OPS plus, is the fact that he's just not hitting the ball for pop that often. But he's clearly capable of doing so, which makes it fun and also frustrating because he's that capable of player.
Yeah, shout out to our buddy Kevin, also known as Saber Skeptic, the one, as you gave him credit for
Great
that.
stat.
Yeah, he loved seeing his name out there. It almost seems like, again, to make two Mets references that cross over to the Rockies, that Raimel Tapia could use a Daniel Murphy-like figure to help him with his launch angle, and could just need a little bit more support from current hitting coach and former brief member of the 86 Mets, Dave Magadan, who has kind of come under fire a little bit, and maybe on the hot seat if this offense doesn't take off, because it's been a lot more about the pitching right now with the Rockies organization than the hitting. And so, as you said, McMahon too, you noticed that his numbers kind of took a dip in overall launch angle for the course of the season.
Yeah, McMahon was not on my radar as a big breakout candidate. I know he had I think he had a nice 2020, but he wasn't really on my radar to have a decent season. He was another one that had launch angle issues going into 2021. And you mentioned the hitting coach on the hot seat, Trevor Story, had a down year. A lot of the guys that, they're not considered franchise cornerstones because the Rockies aren't a transitional phrase, but Tapia was looked at as one of those guys that's like, hey, he's been here since 17, 18. This is a guy we can rely on, a guy that's, put in 100 games pretty much every year. And Tapia just didn't have that caliber of season. I mean, who you go to blame, you blame the player, you blame the coach. It doesn't matter much at that point if the results aren't there. But the thing that I see in Tapia is not a thing I see in a lot of Rockies position players. And that's because, a lot of the guys are making their way up through the minors and stuff like that. But I did like, some things I saw in Brendan Rodgers. I just think that, there needs to be an overhaul of the approach, I think, in Rockies hitting right now, because it's a consistent issue that I've been seeing in a lot of hitters.
Yeah, it's that selectivity, because again, your piece does a great job saying, hey, he's making great contact, but he's also doing it with pitches that are out of the strike zone. So having that patience, or that command or control over what pitches you choose to go after, can obviously, impact that. And I think you're right that they're aggressive, which is a good thing. And, you're going to take advantage of the large outfield at Coors Field. That's why, hitters for the Rockies have, the highest BABIP ultimately, usually across baseball, and why there's been so many, NL batting crown winners. And so, you got to use it to your advantage, because that's not going to be there the other 81 games of the season when you're not playing at Coors.
Right. And you mentioned Tapia's contact rates, because the oddity with Tapia does not end at his launch angle and the peculiar numbers there. It goes even further because Tapia is one of the best contact hitters in MLB right now, on par with guys like Jose Altuve and Jose Ramirez. You mentioned out of zone contact, which I mentioned in my video. His mark of 78.7% was 7th in MLB. That's top 10. That's really, really good. And you'd think by default this means, okay, he's a free swinger. He probably strikes out a lot, poor walk percentage, all that. But, Tapia's numbers in those regards were not bad either. 16.0 K percentage, that was top 40 in the league. He's swinging in the zone as well, 92.7%. That was 12th in MLB. So, I mean, Tapia's numbers for contact and being selective with pitches are all near the top of the league. So it's really perplexing to see him struggle so much offensively with an OPS plus. And obviously OPS plus can be skewed because of cores and because of how that park factor can skew that stat. But still, to be 20 points under average as a Rocky is definitely a point of concern, and definitely a point that something is wrong in the process that has been right before.
Colorado is looking to add some payroll, so you don't think that they're going to cut a guy because $3.9 million for that kind of production. Maybe it's too much. But, this time last year, David Dahl was a player that was, designated for assignment unceremoniously. And you thought, I mean, shoot, only a year prior, he was an all-star. So, I think similar situations between those two, about the same age, both had the same amount of control, at least as of last year. Tapia still has 2 more years. Do you think there could be a team that might be a better fit for Tapia, or, just teams in general that would be interested in taking a flyer on him and maybe give up, a helpful young relief pitcher? What might the market be for Tapia right now? Should the Rockies be open to trades?
That's a really good question. And David Dahl was a really good player to bring up there, because I for one thought that when the Rangers kind of scooped him up under the radar, that it would be a solid pick. But Dahl didn't really fix the issues that were wrong with his approach, and now he's, a AAA guy, and he has the capability to come back. But the thing with Tapia is that Tapia has a lot of plus defense. He has that stolen base threat in his game. And the thing with Tapia is that he's sort of a reclamation project. Like, you've seen peaks and stats over various different seasons. There's never been one season where everything has been put together. So if you're looking for a trade suitor for Tapia, it's definitely a team that might even be similar to the Rockies in a way, a team that doesn't have a ton of money to spend, has a spot they need filled, and has coaches that they believe are capable of turning this type of player around, as well as a farm system that they're willing to give up, a lower end to middle prospect, because Tapia's upside is there. And I think that there are people smarter than me and you in front offices and coaching staffs that know this. But that being said, I think the Rockies would be very unwise to cut Tapia loose, knowing what they have on their hands, because they've been so familiar with him for the past half decade. So I definitely believe there are suitors out there. I don't think you'd see him go to like an instant contender or anything like that, but a place where he can get reps if the Rockies are in a position where they don't really have that spot for him anymore. I could very well see that happening.
Yeah, it could be the case with Connor Joe. You might need to make a video about Kojo, because he was kind of a sleeper before he got
hurt.
Killed
my Mets this year. I remember the
he
series.
did.
He killed us.
So he'll be in left. We know Charlie will be in right, maybe as a designated hitter a little bit here and there. But the Phillies, they got 2 spots open in their outfield after Odubel Herrera and Andrew McCutchen had their options decline. Of course, Bryce Harper really being the only one sticking around. Mickey Moniak, could be some questions about him. I think
I don't know.
He's better with his glove. But when you talk about teams in similar positions, I mean, the Diamondbacks strike me as a club where there could be a deal swung. And later this week, I'll be on with PHNX, our sister station out here in the Southwest. And so we'll have to see if we can strike a deal between the D-backs and the Rockies.
I do like the Phillies pick there. I like the D-backs pick as well. One team that I would keep my eye out on in terms of trying to get the most out of a player while operating under constraints is the Detroit Tigers. We've heard them linked in a ton of free agency rumors so far. They have some open spots in that outfield. Tapia may be a 4th outfielder there. I don't necessarily believe he would be an instant starter, but for a team that has boasted a very nice coaching staff that overhauled their defense halfway through the season to become one of the best defensive teams after being one of the worst, that makes a lot of sense for Tapia. Not so much in the fielding approach, because he's been a good fielder, but in terms of getting the most out of a player, I believe the Tigers coaching staff is on the up and up and could be looking for reclamation projects all around the league. So sorry to interrupt there.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up the Tigers, because I do have a question for you after I tell you about Ball Aerospace and Technology. We love saving you guys money, and we love companies trying to save the world. And we've got some new information on Ball and their manufacturing plant in Golden. They're looking for production technicians. You can read the full description and apply at jobs.ball.com by searching for Golden. This position is on the front line of the aluminum beverage can production process at Ball's plant in Golden. They offer a competitive $27.39 per hour rate with potential increase at 6, 12, and 18 months. You get active the day of hire with your comprehensive insurance, 401k for retirement, stock purchase ownership program. So many benefits for working for Ball. And you can text Golden right now to 77222 and you'll get linked to open positions. Or you can go directly to jobs.ball.com and search for Golden. Then take that hard-earned paycheck and buy yourself a home with the expertise and support of Chevalier Mortgage. Chevalier's Mortgage ultimate goal is to take the stress out of buying and refinancing. They strive to give their borrowers options with their full financial picture in mind and with the highest level of integrity. Their borrowers so now. And they have a fun perk right now for DNVR listeners. Visit them at dnvrmortgage.com and enter to win a free DNVR shirt or hat of your choice. And when you do, most importantly, make sure you set up a free consultation to discuss all your options. That's dnvrmortgage.com. Call Virginia directly at 303-257-6578 or visit dnvrmortgage.com. Make the bubble work for you, even if you're trying to refinance with natural equity going on in your home. Michael Chevalier, NMLS number 1931006. Virginia Chevalier, NMLS number 1910631. DraftKings Sportsbook, you know them as the official sports betting partner of the NFL, and they've got an offer every football fan needs to jump in on. New customers can bet just $1 on any NFL team to score a point. That's right. It's a guaranteed. It's a lock. That's the whole point. And once they do, you win $100 in free bets. It's that easy and that rewarding. You should also know that you can get skin in the game with new same game parlays, right? You combine multiple bets from the same game for a bigger payout, and the more legs you add, the more money you end up winning. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code DNVR. New customers can bet just $1 on any NFL game for there to be a point that's scored. It's really that simple. When they do, you win $100 in free bets. That's promo code DNVR this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. As we said, the Detroit Tigers, you had a really cool video, your one before Tapia, about the baseball narratives that died in 2021. And one of those happened to deal with Tigers manager A.J. Hinch. Did the Astros carry him? Are the Tigers going to be really good going forward? What are your thoughts here, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, so we saw the unceremonious exit of a lot of the people involved in the Astros cheating scandal. Your Carlos Beltran, Alex Cora, who came back, and the biggest one, the figurehead of the entire thing, was AJ Hinch. I thought as soon as I saw that hire, I instantly knew it would be a perfect fit in Detroit. Obviously, they knew from the get-go that is a long road to get back to contention, but it could, speed up this offseason with some key acquisitions. In terms of the video that I made, the baseball narratives that died, I fully believe, after looking into the Tigers' numbers and the quality of players that they had, that AJ Hinch has done a fine job in turning around the trajectory of that franchise so far. They were one of the best teams in the American League in the second half. As I mentioned before, their outs above average on their infield was putrid. In the first half, they figured out exactly what was wrong and fixed it going into the second half, making them one of the best defensive teams. They got really good production out of guys like Heimer Candelario and a few others that are slipping my mind right now. So the Tigers are on the up and up, and if they get some serious weapons going, you're going to see AJ Hinch back in the postseason very soon. So I don't believe the Astros core carried him. I think it definitely helped that they were there and as talented as they were, but AJ Hinch is a very good manager.
Yeah, I think the Tigers are going to be a force going forward. I had them at plus 4,500 as an early World Series winner for next year. Yeah, I don't know that's going to happen, but if you want to lay even $1 on it,
a little sprinkle?
Why not? Yeah, you got to spread it around a little bit. They've got some money to spend. We'll see if there's a reunion between Hinch and Carlos Correa. That's a big one. They might end up getting some shortstop. I think Javi Baez could even be a better fit where it allows them to sign him to more of a short-term deal.
Don't say that to me.
You want him back on
in
Queens?
I want my middle infield intact.
Yeah. And you know, the Tigers rotation is pretty good too. Casey Mize, Tarek Skubal,
Yep.
a couple guys. Well, you brought up the Mets, so we do need to talk about them. What the hell's going on with the Mets here, Jack?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, it was nice to come on the Denver podcast to simply escape thinking about them. They're going into the winter meetings. They have a squad of 5 that are none of them are GMs or anything like that. Conforto rejected the qualifying offer. Most people saw that coming. I don't know. It's going to be a spooky, scary offseason, one that got off on a really bad foot. And you know, the Rockies in the same vein, they really disappointed me by not giving John Gray that QO after not trading him. So I'm hoping they have an offseason roadmap that they're going to follow and get you know some core pieces intact. But yeah, you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, the Rockies and the Mets are in very interesting states of limbo right now. Whereas the Mets, you know, they have those expectations, and I think the Rockies are sort of under that right now because of how jam packed the NL West is. But you know, these are big winters for both of these teams for laying groundwork moving forward.
Were you more surprised that John the qualify? Surprised that Sigard did?
I was honestly, I don't think I was shocked at either. I think that pretty much went by the book. I think Conforto, he's gonna get his deal. He could get more, which I think is the frustrating thing. I think the qualifying offer would have been perfect for him, even if you don't think he's worth 18 million. At the same time, some people don't think Thor is worth 18 million, and I think he absolutely is, and I think he's a steal on the QO. But you know, at the end of the day, for the Mets, they're gonna get another top 15 pick. They'll have 2 going into next year when Conforto signs with somebody else, probably. So, you know, there are silver linings in all of this. The Mets, you know, they do draft well. We lost our pick last year in Kumar Rocker. That's a whole nother discussion. But, you know, I'm feeling good about that at the very least.
Yeah, and don't forget the 11th overall pick with Kumar Rocker, who was unable to get signed. So the Mets really could do some loading up for the most part. Another cool video that you put out recently was every MLB team's craziest stat. You had one just for the American League. That's how chock full of goodness you had. You had some for the National League too. Charlie Blackmon, were you surprised for a guy who's not known for his defense anymore, former center fielder, but that he had 14 outfield assists this year and 3 double plays? You know,
dude, yeah,
outfielders, double plays.
So cool. I mean, I had no idea. You'd think it would be a guy like Tapia out there to put up those kind of numbers, but Charlie Blackmon has a cannon, and I feel like no one talks about it, which is really neat because he seems like a perfect candidate for that NLDH spot if it ever comes. But, you know, Charlie, you know, he's been so quietly dependable in Colorado forever. And, you know, you can look at some metrics and he's been below average in some aspects. Because, you know, he's getting older and he's been playing the outfield his entire career, which you can't say for a ton of guys, especially in the American League. So Charlie Blackmon, definitely impressive in right field. I think he's, you know, a good fit to stay there for a decent while. And, you know, Charlie could play into his late 30s, early 40s. I mean, you never know with him. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's, you know, infamous almost for his post-game workouts where everyone's waiting in the clubhouse to talk with him, and he's still got another 45 minutes doing whatever he does to keep himself fresh. So he's able to do that. What are your thoughts on the Rockies as a whole right now? Where you think, you know, they could be headed in the next couple of years? They've got a lot of really good minor leaguers down in the A ball area, low A, high A. Is it going to be a few years until those guys come up, until we can maybe see them back in the postseason, or is there still something there with this core that's left over? Let's just say.
Yeah, I know that people panned the Arenado move, and you know there was questionable in its own right. I think that the Rockies pitching has not been in this good of a state in a long time, and I feel like that got a little bit overshadowed by just kind of a mediocre season that everybody kind of expected. They extended Sensatella. I hope they shell out some dough for Marquez because he's the best that's ever come to Colorado, probably the best that will ever come to Colorado just in general. They didn't extend the QO to John Gray. That was an early disappointment for me because I think that formidable 3 is really good to build around on. And, they're in a tough era of the NL West right now with the Giants rising out of nowhere and the Dodgers being the Dodgers and the Padres probably loading up ammo to come back next season. So, if you're a Rockies fan, this obviously isn't the thing you want to hear, but contending right now is difficult and probably not ideal for where the Rockies are at. I think conserving payroll and spending wisely and, investing in these draft picks and making sure that, you fund the development system of the Rockies and make sure these guys are getting taken care of. That should be priority number one, because there is a lot of young talent in the Rockies system. And there has been in prior seasons that I feel like didn't really ever come to fruition. And I feel like that can always go back to the organization in some way. So, I mean, they clean slate headed into 2021. They're heading in a new direction. It's been another, rebuilding phase for the Rockies. But a lot of people forget that this team was a 2-time wildcard team, in back-to-back years, not that long ago. They beat the Cubs in 18, I believe. So it's not like we're that far removed from Rockies' success, and there's no reason to believe that we're not far removed from future Rockies' success. They just need to, have a plan in place and not sort of coast with these decisions. The John Gray QO, I know I keep bringing it up because I thought it was a lock and it didn't happen. That is worrisome, but it's a long offseason full of many decisions to make. So, don't feel too discouraged by that.
Yeah, in a vacuum, the qualifying offer thing, as you said, kind of, expected but disappointing. And you say, okay, that kind of is the right choice, but you rewind the clock to the trade deadline and say you had an opportunity to get more than just one compensation round pick for Story and for Gray. And if you couple those two guys together, I mean, shoot, look what, the return that the Nationals ended up getting. Now, of course, Story probably definitely caliber as Max Scherzer and Trey Turner, but nevertheless, you could at least maybe get one top 100 prospect from a team. So you're right. You've got to manage those things. While we're talking about the NL West in the video, you also had something about those narratives that are kind of been busted. Sal Perez being overrated. Do you think maybe Buster Posey is overrated? It's hard to say that about a guy like him, but is he like a 97% first ballot Hall of Famer kind of guy, or not? And is Salvi going to be one eventually?
So I'm going to answer with my perspective and then the perspective of a writer or a voter in that case. I think that Posey has been perennially underrated. For a decent, he always just kind of flew under the radar for me. I'm not going to lie to you. He missed 2020. I missed some time in 2019, and he had a really good year this year, 2021. And he's very well respected in San Francisco. And I think those years where they were sort of out of contention, the 2015 to 2019, before this season, Posey just kind of did his thing. He played he played 4 days, that kind of thing, and always put up solid offensive numbers. And I think that in that similar vein, where Posey doesn't get a ton of praise until now, obviously he's retired. Salvador Perez, I felt like always got the numerous praise that I felt that Posey deserved. And in that case, I think they're both going to be Hall of Famers just because they've been around for so long, just because they both have rings, just because this type of player, this catcher that's been reliable for a decade, it doesn't exist that much anymore. Like you have your Yadier Molina, you have your Buster Posey, you have Sal Perez, and now a lot of teams are adopting, two reliable catchers or platoon catchers, or pitchers have catchers that they prefer to throw to, so those catchers get to start. And that position is fading away from a cornerstone starting guy that goes out there every 5 days. So I think that both of them, are going to get the respect they deserve by getting into the Hall. Whether or not Sal deserves it is whatever at this point, because he's just so synonymous with Kansas City, and players that are synonymous with franchises deserve to go into the Hall for those franchises' fans. That's always how I felt. That's why I feel like Todd should get in, because he was a Rocky for his entire career and a fantastic hitter at that. I think they'll both get in. I think they both deserve to get in different capacities. I think Buster's a little bit more deserving, but 97% first balloter. I would definitely agree with that.
Jack, look, you're putting yourself over here big time talking about Todd Helton going to the Hall of Fame. You're getting even more Rockies fans are going to be coming to the Jolly Olive
he deserves it.
YouTube channel. And you know what? And I also want to mention too, you've got the Shea Station. You've got a really good show on YouTube and podcast form too, I imagine, with great left-handed reliever Jerry Blevins. With a name like that, you have to be a left-handed, reliever.
Oh, of course. You gotta. Yeah, Jerry's the man. Very cool dude.
Yeah, that's got to be just a dream come true for a kid growing up. Again, you never know where your future is going to take you. And, how many times did you see Jerry Blevins play at, well, it would have been Citi Field by that point, and think one day this is going to be my colleague. And I may have to text him and say, hey, can you make sure you're here on time? And can you get your act together, JB?
Yeah,
you know,
I don't think that thought never popped in my head at the stadium, but it all happened so fast. It happened in a whirlwind, but I'm very thankful nonetheless.
Yeah, well, Jack, thank you so much for taking out some time talking with us today. Please go ahead and plug away anything else other than I'll tell people to follow you on Twitter at @jolly_olive. What else have you got for them out there?
Yeah, so we discussed in this video a lot about the video I just made on Colorado Rocky Raimel Tapia. I believe he's not the only Rocky I'm going to be making a video about this offseason. I won't reveal too much. So if you're interested in that or anything else that we talked about, go check out my channel, Jolly Olive on YouTube. Yeah, for all assorted baseball content and stuff like that.
Jack, this has been great, man. Really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. You can follow me at Patrick D. Lyons on Twitter, as well as our account at DNVR_Rockies. We're down here in Arizona covering the Arizona Fall League all week long and keeping our eyes on guys like Brett Beatty. Looked okay today.
Very nice.
Looked
Very
okay
nice.
today. Looking at enjoying those Mets prospects, a couple of Yankee ones as well. But of course, we're going to be looking at Michael Toglia and the crew from the Rockies and the Salt River Rafter. So for DNVR Sports, he's Jack, a.k.a. Jolly Olive. I'm Patrick Lyons. Thanks for joining us for the DNVR Rockies podcast.